Hello again and welcome to this video series on work orders for express maintenance. During this video we're going to be talking about work order data, setup, and best practices. This video is going to really help you make sure that you are set up for success and how to use the work order system. We're going to look at some different things like security, we're going to look at configuration, grid properties, setup, fields, specifically the category, group, and class, and then some user-defined fields. So without any further ado, let's get rolling. Alright, here's Express Maintenance. We're on the work order section, and as promised we're going to look at security first. So some of the things that's really important when you're talking about work orders is making sure that only the right people have the right access. So in this version 9.7.0.20, you have the ability to see the overview and data view. I'm going to go down to my user account, and I want you to just pay special attention to the access settings, making sure that any technician that needs to be able to have access to the work orders, both in Express Maintenance desktop and on the mobile app, will need to have their login name and password. Then you can actually assign them to a user group. This user group is valuable in case you ever need to take one user's settings and apply that to everybody within the same user group. You can do that over here by applying access settings to different group members. Okay, it's just a little quick tip. Also, in this version of Express Maintenance, you can pick which sites these individuals have access to. So I can give them just access to the equipment that is assigned to the maintenance location or site, excuse me, the fabrication site, extrusion, and same thing with the parts. You're also going to want to make sure that they are listed and checked off here as a maintenance technician. That is what puts them into the drop-down list on your work orders here and here. Okay, if you don't have them there, then they're not going to show up in that list, and you're not going to be able to schedule. And then the rest of these is only optional. Full administrator will bypass any of their settings over here. Check for updates on login. I typically have checked just for admin, and then the notifications that you see down here. Now over here, as far as access settings are concerned related to work orders, I've granted myself full access, obviously. But if I want my technician to just have write capabilities to the work orders themselves, then I would come over here and just do write access. That's write and read. If I want to be able to, on work orders that I've created for myself, give read, write, and delete, then I can do that here. So play around with that, and if you have any questions, obviously contact us, and we'd be happy to help explain that in more detail. There will also be another video on the security and setup for employees later on down the line. So now let's get into configuration. Over here in the administrative menu, under the configuration menu, you have the work orders menu. You have general settings, charges and auto apply, and then printed documents. And I'm not going to go over all of these because there are quite a few, but some of the things that you may or may not be aware of in Express Maintenance, and especially in this newer version, is you can require a scheduled date, service on all work orders, category, group, class, priority. Now you're going to want to play around with this. A lot of people like to just say, oh wow, I can require all these fields, let's turn them all on. Well, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Feel free to turn them on, see how it impacts your users. But we do recommend that if you can, keep them on. Just understand that that's going to, when you require a category on work order create, whether you are scheduling from a service or a request, you're going to have that category. Or if I'm entering a demand work order right from the work order screen, you're going to have that category on work order create. So just keep that in mind. Anytime that scheduler comes up, this is also impacting your scheduler. Then you also have the auto assign work order number. That's defaulted to on. You can customize that, customize those work order numbers if you want to. You can set the next work order numbers, and then down here is where you're going to see some of the services and parts user defined fields. Where those come into play is on the work order themselves. You have your services, and then in your grid properties you have these user checks or user defined fields. So in the configuration screen, you have the ability to change what they say, and then you can apply them, give them different drop-down options in the codes table. Okay, so that's that. If you have any other questions, feel free to go through the general settings and check those out. Charges and auto apply. You have your default labor rate, tax decimal places, default work order tax rates. Check these out and modify those as desired. On the one thing I would make a statement on is the default labor rate. If you have a maintenance budget that you have to maintain and you can average out your burden labor rate for your technicians, I would put it here and make that expense for labor really easy to calculate. Of course, on the employees table, you can give them an actual labor cost right here, and that will be applied as well. But if you can average it out and prefer to average it out, what that will benefit you is if you have the individual employees' labor rates applied to the work orders, then other people are going to see everybody else's burden labor rate. So we do recommend, just for simplicity, coming up with an average labor rate and then putting that in your configuration, then applying that. So just keep that in mind. And then the last thing in configuration is your printed documents. You have these options to print work orders. Where you would see those is over here in the print selected work order. When this menu comes up, these 6 reports these are all just reports that you're printing out of Express Maintenance. When you come over back to configuration on printed documents, you can actually select which report you want that to default to. So if you have created a custom report, a custom work order for worksheets or completed, you can then have that here. And one of the biggest questions I get here is, well, what if we run multiple sites and then you want that site's data to be on their work orders when they're printed, like their address, locations, and those kind of things. That's some customized work that we would have to help you work through. It's just simple SQL scripts written into the reports, but if you would like to do that and see that, we've done that. It's not a big deal. Just let us know. We'll help you. Okay, so that gets through configurations. Let's talk about grid properties really quick. And when I'm talking about grid properties, I'm talking specifically about the grid properties under services and parts. Under services, I have these grid properties set up as a default. I like to know the service description. Then I want to see my complete or canceled option. So if I want to cancel this service and have it reschedule but show that it was not completed, then I would use this canceled option. I want to know what date this service was performed on. That's different than the work order completed date, because if I have multiple services on a work order and I complete them at different times, then I want to know which services were completed when. Unless they're always completed on the same date, then there's another option for that. Get your technician field, labor estimate. It's great for planning and scheduling to have those labor estimates in there. And of course, you can default those by adding them to your services list here. And then you have your actual hours. And I put these two right next to each other so whoever's performing the service can look at this and say, okay, there's this is supposed to take 4 hours. So if I'm lollygagging, they'll know that this was supposed to take 4 hours and I'm taking 6. And that gets there's a report for that, and that's an issue. Then you have cost centers, and the rest of these are optional. The ones that I would say that you may want to prioritize are notes unit specific, notes services general, and safety notes if you use them. The notes services general, of course, that's where your checklists are. That's what gets printed on the work order. So being able to see those right here from the work order is very, very helpful. And then on the parts, you have your part description, part number, quantity, cost, cost center, complete, completed on, and canceled. Okay. Last but not least, we have our 3 fields down here: category, group, and class. Now, everybody gets Express Maintenance, and it's a totally free for all as far as how you guys want to code this. What I'm getting ready to show you is just our recommendation. It's something that we've learned over the years. It's really how to use Express Maintenance optimally. And the idea here is it really is so that the data is really easy to enter, so that you have good service histories, so that you can run your KPI reports. And the KPI reports that we find are the most beneficial relate to these fields. So if I want to be able to compartmentalize my reports based off planned and demand work, so you want to see how much money is being invested in your reactive maintenance versus your proactive maintenance, you need a way to compartmentalize and report on those. And that's what this category field is for. You'll notice that I only have two options. So is this a demand work order or a planned work order? And from there, I'm going to break it down even further by going into the group. So how do I group these work orders? Well, if it's planned or proactive, I'm going to use these top three. So I have preventive maintenance, obviously planned. Predictive maintenance, same thing. And then this one's PM or PDM generated. So preventative or predictive generated just simply means I created a work order that needed to be created off of a PM that I was performing. And that should be calculated as part of your planned maintenance, because even though it is a reactive work order, you found it during your PM program. That's important. You want to know that information, because that means that your PM program is working. And then if it's reactive maintenance, you can do all kinds of breakdown codes. We like to start this off with BKD just to identify this as a breakdown. And then you have your 4 general areas of breakdown codes: mechanical, electrical, pneumatic, hydraulic. And then you can break those down even further. We've seen some of our customers have taken this to a list of hundreds. Totally up to you. We put numbers in front of these, so it's really easy to search and sort. If I just put in number 6, it's going to bring me to the breakdown pneumatic, and I get used to that. And then you also have safety, capital projects. You can do rebuilds, you can do vendor managed projects, and those kind of things, all kinds of options there. And of course, if you need to modify those, you can either hit manage codes or go to your codes up here and you can manage them. And last but not least is our class field. And this one is where we identify or we classify where this work order is at in the planning and scheduling phase. And the best place for me to show you this is kind of in the final product on the work order overview. So one of the grid properties set up in the work order overview that we discussed in a last video is this work order class. And here you can see that some of these work orders are not scheduled. Okay, they have a scheduled date, but that's just a general date. It hasn't actually been scheduled because in the way that we teach and apply this is that we mark this, if it's needs reviewed, then it's not ready. But it can go from needs reviewed to I can look at all of my work orders that need to be reviewed, that are currently open and need to be reviewed, and I can systematically go through each one of these and see, okay, do I have the parts? Do I have the machine availability? Do I have the labor? If I have my labor estimates over here, I can calculate the total sum of the work that's going to take and see if I have enough labor time based on my technicians, mechanics, vendors availability. Then I can just move down to the next one, and any of those that I identify that require parts but the parts are not on hand, I can just search and find all of my need to order parts, work orders, and then I will go through those work orders and order those parts, get those on order. Then I will move those to waiting on parts, and then I can search and find all of my work orders that are waiting on parts, maybe on Wednesdays, and then see if I have the availability and of the equipment and the labor. And if I have both of those, then I can move this to ready to schedule. If I am already ready to schedule it, I can just move it to schedule and get that thing scheduled. And then a couple other options is if I want to provide production with a list of work orders that I need to coordinate with production, then I can give them a list here. I can actually print the list off and then hand it to them, and they tell me when I can have that equipment down, and then I come back into my work order overview, and then I actually schedule those work orders based on the dates that they said that they would be available. So then you get them to sign it to give you some security there. So that is the general setup and best practices. I hope this has been helpful, and in our next videos we're going to be talking about how to enter and complete those work orders systematically and in a way that's going to give you some great KPI data. Talk to you soon.